Hi, welcome back to the deeper dive version of 26 Minutes with. We're with Gordon Melville. What a terrific man. He's the founder and CEO of Jewel International. He's a digital radio host, podcaster, TV personality, the long bearded guy, a high performance mindset mentor, best-selling author, keynote speaker. He teaches entrepreneurs to navigate mental awareness and health in a world of judgment and toxic masculinity. He's worked with the likes of Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar in developing his own coaching specialization. Gordon, welcome back. We've been talking a lot about mental health, why it's so important, what we need to do to really manage our well-being, our emotional quotient. We've talked already. We've touched about on suicide, and you speak about suicide in your work, not only with your work with men, but in your coaching. And with men, suicide rates are the highest among any other group of people, women or youth. What are the warning signs to watch out for? Like if we're with somebody and we suspect and we know they're going through a rough time, what are some warning signs to look out for in terms of the possibility of them taking their life?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me, David. I appreciate being here today.
Thanks. And I'm really super glad to.
Thank you so much. You know what? It's an interesting question because I've heard stories and seen people that don't give any indication, none whatsoever. And that's the hard part because again, it goes back to what we're talking about in terms of putting the tools we need into our box before we need them, so that we have them to pull out when we do need them, because some people still will not reach out. But there are some big red flags that can show, and stuff like that is change in behavior, like a radical shift in behavior where they're active outgoing people, and all of a sudden they don't want to go out and socialize, they don't want to talk to anybody, they isolate. That's a warning sign. Hey, there's something not right. Sleeping a lot, right, when they're not normally like that, it can be a warning sign. Huge weight loss or weight gain is that has no rhyme or reason to it, right? All of a sudden they're binge eating or they're binge fasting, but right, that kind of thing. Something like giving away their stuff, things that are important to them, that are meaningful to them, that they're giving away. That can be a warning sign. Hey, wait, why are you giving away big hunks of, right? It's not uncommon to give certain things away to certain people at weird times. That's okay. But if they start to give up things that are important to them, that can throw up a red flag. There's a lot of things, that behaviors, especially if they're struggling. And sometimes it's like going to a funeral. People don't like to go to funerals. They don't like to go to viewings, not because they don't want to be supportive, but because they don't know what to say. And there's nothing you can say at a funeral or at a viewing that's going to make the situation any better. It just isn't, right? But it's not about what you say. It's about the fact that you're standing there. It's that they're not by themselves.
Yeah, you're just being with them.
Exactly right. And so it's similar type things, right? When I know somebody is struggling, when I make sure they realize and know, hey, you're not by yourself. Hey, I'm here. I'm standing here with you. I'm holding on to you. I'm holding your hand. I'm lifting you up. I care. I love you. Being able to know that they're not alone, and if they feel safe in that space, they may not do it right away, but at some point they'll open up. Especially if we've provided them and they've provided themselves tools to get through some of that stuff.
How do
Right?
we approach a friend then who is exhibiting some of those signs? How do we even approach that topic?
I think the biggest thing is to just ask. I have had friends say, Gord, do not ever call 911. Please don't do that. And I'll be pissed off. And I'm like, I would prefer you be pissed off and alive than have to go to your funeral. So, you can, if it gets that hard, I will reach out and ask somebody for like clinical type help.
Yeah, that was my next question. So who do we call on for an intervention where it's not as noisy and loud as calling 911 would be?
Right. You know what? There are lots of resources. Some of them are great. Some of them are not so great. Some of them are easily accessible. You and I both live in Ontario. The waiting list right now, I've heard stories which flabbergast me that people call the 911 or the 911 for suicide, like the suicide hotline numbers, and get put on hold.
Oh boy.
I'm like that, like that's there's such something wrong with that. So sometimes there's a 2-year waiting list to get mental awareness help at the government, so where it's subsidized and whatever. And if you don't, it's wildly expensive to get mental awareness help at private clinic and whatnot, in the thousands of dollars. So it's cost prohibitive. The whole thing is just baffed on all the different sides. So sometimes, can you reach out to somebody? Yes. The thing is, when if I know somebody's struggling that hard, I will reach out to them and just let them know, hey, you know what? I know you're struggling. I know your life is hard at the moment. I get it. I think that's why my perspective, Papa allowed, and I call God Papa because of my relationship with him, but he allowed me to go through my own experience of that to equip me in a specific way to understand, because I didn't understand. I always thought, you know what, suicide is just the most selfish thing you could do. Why don't they just reach out? And then once I was in that space, I thought I was doing my friends and family a favor by not being here, not being the millstone around their neck. I'm not reaching out in that moment because I think I'm doing a good thing. In that sense, for me, that's what it was. But I've talked to lots of people that they don't see. The challenge becomes, and I'm trying to find something big. The challenge is that if this is the problem, when we're in this situation, the problem is right here. Well, not only do I not see help, I don't see positive, I can't see my way forward in any way, shape, or form. And the problem is there's no way to get through. So again, about the tools. So reaching out, we need to do that. They're not going to do that. They're not going to reach out in the moment to do that. And it's a weird thing. I believe that if we could interview people after they succeeded, obviously we can't do that without a Ouija board and a seance, and
Yeah.
that gets a little weird. But I believe that if we could interview them and talk to them after, north of 80% or more would have changed their mind if they had had the opportunity.
Right. Because so what you showed was, a board, a clipboard up against your face, and you can't see beyond that.
Right.
And you got to know that there's life beyond your current circumstance.
Right. Absolutely. But sometimes because we can't see it, we need somebody that cares about us and loves us to pull the clipboard away. Right. Or to be able to help, work through that, to help them remove it and pull it down. The problem gets so big, we're just blinded by the problem. We can't see anything else. Right. So knowing that there's somebody else there that has some objectivity, it's like a lot of things, we get into a thing where you're writing your books and whatnot, and you get into it, and eventually you go, crap, I need to step away for a minute or two because I'm losing my objectivity on, is this good? Is it not good? Because we focus so hard on it that we don't have any context anymore. And so we walk away, we leave it for a day or whatever. We come back to it. Oh, there we go. Fresh eyes. And we look at it again. But when a space where we're in an emotional state and that problem looks so big, we need somebody else to help us remove that or to walk us through it so that it dissipates and then we can see forward again.
Right. I used to have an old boss who used to say, David, sometimes you got to take a walk in the park.
Exactly right. For sure. Right. Absolutely right.
Gordon, so we're with Gordon Melville, the long-bearded guy. What is the success rate of an intervention or medical help as far as preventing an individual from taking their own life, even after some form of therapy or treatment?
You know what? I haven't seen. I know there's no way it doesn't get better. Is there a percentage? 40% gets better. That's virtually impossible to come up with a percentage that way. I do know that when people, guys or girls, right, men or women,
Mhm.
um,
Youth.
when they feel they have an outlet, when they feel they have the tools to get through whatever that is, and they know they have people around them that care and give a shit about them as human beings, it makes all the difference, because the percentage goes way up that they're going to reach out for help. If they know they can reach out to somebody that won't judge them, that they trust, and they feel safe and not judged, they'll reach out. And if we can give each other that kind of, especially as guys, if we can give each other that outlet where we know, hey, you know what, if I get into trouble, I can call David, and he may not have the answers, but at least I know I'm not by myself.
Yeah.
I have had calls where somebody will reach out to me and say, hey, Gord, I'm not looking for help. I'm not looking for coaching. I'm not looking for mentorship. I just don't want to be by myself. Can we just, and I'm like, sure. And so the line stays open, right? And I go about my thing and do what I need to do. And they're on the other end, shuffling around, doing their thing they're just not, but they know they're connected. They know they're not by themselves. And that sounds a little weird, but being able to avail ourselves and know we have people around us that'll help us that way. I've had, when I was on the road, I used to say to people all the time, if you need to reach out, you just need to scream and vent, knock yourself out. And I've learned since then, there's some better ways to do that. But at the time, there were people that would call my phone number and just into the phone and then hang up. And they wouldn't tell me who it was. And there was no, back then, there was no call display or whatever, right?
Yes.
And so they would, months later, they would go, hey, did you get my message? I'm like, oh, that was you goof. At least tell me who it is. Like, at least tell me who it is. But you know what? Knowing that they can reach out like that, making sure you're creating a culture around yourself that people know they can reach out, right? We were at that's a couple months ago now. My youngest son is in Air Cadets, and his commandant reached out to him in an email on a Friday night and said, hey, can you show up with your dress uniform tomorrow for a funeral? And he's never been to a funeral. He's 14 now. So, my wife and I went with him, and we get to the church. There's 500 people in the church. It was a 13-year-old colleague, peer of his that we had all seen the week before at cadets, that hung himself in his barn, in his parents' barn. And the more I thought about it after, it took me a long time to kind of calm myself down, because there was no indication anywhere. They didn't say that's what happened. They didn't publish that's what happened. You couldn't tell that's what happened because of what they were. If you want, instead of flowers or whatnot, you can give to suicide prevention. It was nothing like that.
Mhm.
And I had to hunt to find out what happened. And so I was talking to one of the friends of the family, and they're like, yeah, they haven't told anybody that. They don't want. I'm like, why? Well, they're embarrassed and ashamed, and it. And my heart, I can't even conceive losing a child. So from that point of view, my heart devastated and breaks for them.
Well, that was another question. If somebody does experience that,
Yep.
the mess afterwards is quite the cleanup.
Right.
What are the ramifications and effects on those left behind, Gordon?
Well, but there's no. We talked about that on the other half. There's no energy created or destroyed. So the energy, that sadness that's in that person, it doesn't go away. You're just transmuting it from yourself to all the people that love and care about you. So all that sadness and angst was still there. But we have to be able to use those situations, instead of letting it be 100% negative. Is it horrific? Yes. Is it sad? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And we need to rally around those parents and around the family and look after them and console them or whatever. But they have to be able to use that situation as a learning moment, as a teaching moment, so that it doesn't happen again. The fact that nobody was talking about it and it wasn't brought up that's part of the problem. We stick our head in the sand. He's got 6 siblings. 6. And there were 500 people in that room that, and his siblings are going to go, well, apparently that's an option that works. That's bullshit. We need to be able to say, call it out. And their heart breaks. The weirdest thing is this, David. And I apologize. I get really wound up because I'm like, I was so angry when I found that out, because I'm like, you know what? With all due respect to his parents and with the heartbreak of losing a child, I don't give a rat's ass that they're embarrassed and ashamed. I don't give a shit. That still needs to be, they're perpetuating the problem. They're not talking about it. They're not letting, and the weirdest thing happens when I first opened up about it, and it took me a year to even admit to myself that it had happened, let alone tell anybody. My wife didn't even know. Nobody knew. But I was and at the time I was in the financial world. No one's given their money to a suicidal guy. So I couldn't tell anybody. And even if I could, I wouldn't have known where to reach out anyway. So, but being in that moment, being in that space, I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't know what to do with it. And so being able, I thought people would judge me. That's what I was anticipating. They're going to look at me different if they find out, because it's weak. You tried to take that, you know what, that's weak. And I got the complete opposite reaction. Once I was able to stand up at a Mo Mondays, oddly enough, the first time I ever shared it in public was at a Mo Mondays in Guelph. And
you were once suicidal.
Sorry?
That you were once suicidal?
I went through the whole story with people. I shared, this is what happened. This is where I got. And in front of, I had work colleagues there. I had invited church people, some of my family, and a whole whack of strangers. But when I opened up and actually shared it, I got an overwhelming amount of love back that said, you know, it doesn't surprise us based on who you are, that high performance guy. Mm-hmm. We're so sorry you went through that, and we're sorry we weren't there for you, and we didn't see that, that you were in that kind of a space. But thank you for sharing. And it was an outpouring of love. We think people are going to judge us, and some people are going to. That's on them. That's not on you. And we need to be able to step into that. And again, the more often we hide it, we allow that judgment, that stigma, we want to call it that, we allow that judgment to continue and be perpetuated again and again and again and again. Why? Because we're not open about it. I think people would be shocked to find out, statistically, they say 85% of men in particular have either tried or thought about in a serious way suicide at some point in their life. 85%. That means the chances of you talking to somebody that has experienced some form of that, whether they actually tried or not, is really high. Almost 9 out of 10. So it's something that's common for everybody, but we keep putting our head in the sand and keep pushing it off that, hey, you know what? I can't talk about that. Well, we need to talk about it. We need to. Part of the reason, and I think I shared that with you. Part of the reason, you know what that is?
Yeah, the heart over the apostrophe.
Yeah, it's a semicolon.
Semicolon, right.
I'm heart-centric, so I used a heart, right?
Yeah.
But a semicolon is the international sign for suicide survivor. And the reason is when we write, you get to the end of a sentence and you put a period, and then you go, wait, I got some more to say. So you use a semicolon and you continue to write. In my life, I could have put a period and I didn't. I had some more to say. So I use a semicolon. And so anywhere you see a semicolon in that kind of a context, you see it in a tattoo. You see it. There's the Semicolon Project is a great organization, but a semicolon is it's an interesting concept, because when the gentleman that put it on my wrist, he's done thousands and thousands of semicolons. Tattoo artist, that he's amazing, out of Dorchester, but he raises money for suicide prevention by doing tattoos. And when he put that on my wrist, he said, "Gord, that's the biggest one I've ever done." And I think that's interesting because it means people want to acknowledge it's happened, but they don't want anybody to know. And so they're a bunch of real tiny little itty bitty semicolons, right? And he said to me, "Why do you want it on your wrist like that? On your right wrist specifically?" And I said, because when I shake hands with people, if they know what a semicolon is and they know what that means, they instantly know it's a safe zone, no judgment. And he thought that was cool at the time. That's years ago now, but I reached out to him recently for some more body art. And he said to me, by the way, is your tattoo working the way you'd hoped? I said, absolutely it is. I said, I was in a Starbucks not long ago, and I went to pay for my drinks. The girl behind the counter held up the machine for me to tap my debit card, and my sleeve must have come up just enough she could see my tattoo. And she didn't say anything, but her eyes filled up with tears instantly. Like instantly, she filled up with tears, and she pulled her ear forward, and she had a little tattoo of a semicolon right behind her ear. And it like instantly I get goosebumps. It deeply connected us at a real deep heart level instantly without having to say anything. I had a little bit of a glimpse of her journey, and she had a little bit of a glimpse of mine.
What got you to that point? What happened? Like, was it an accumulation of things, or was it just like, and then one, like, what was that moment where it's like, it could get real here?
No, I'm good with that. Again, we need to be able to share it and talk into that.
Yeah.
Essentially what happened, I was Energizer Bunny for 30 years. Go, 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 go. And I was teaching self-care, but I wasn't doing any self-care, which I think is a common theme, especially for guys. But after 30 years of that, my body said, hey, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. And so in late 2015, I was literally bedridden for 2 years. And when I say no energy, our ensuite was 20 feet from the bed. And I would fall down 2 or 3 times just trying to get to the bathroom. Like my body was completely done. And when you take an Energizer Bunny and squish them into a space where they can't move, it gets dark in a hurry. And so I felt I was a millstone, literally. I was just a weight on my family. I wasn't producing. I couldn't get out of bed. And so, I was just dragging them all down. And so one afternoon, well, the method doesn't matter, but the point is, I started a process and was on the bathroom floor. And I remember hearing a voice, and my wife was at work. My kids were at school. There was nobody home. And I heard a man's voice as audibly as I hear you talking to me, say to me, what are you doing? Like, this is not the legacy you want to leave for you've got an 8-year-old's going to show up here in a few hours. This is what you want him to find, really? Like, and through my tears, looking out into the hallway across from the bathroom, I remember seeing our family picture. And that was Papa, but he was saying to me that there's reasons you don't want to do what you're doing. And I stopped, and it caught me, and I was like, you know what? You're right. This is not the legacy I want to leave. I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but I have to figure it out. And so I stopped the process. I cleaned up the mess and went back to bed. Nobody noticed. I slept solid for 2 days because of what I had put into myself, and the effects of that, of what I couldn't get out.
Mhm.
But I didn't tell anybody. I was ashamed I'd gotten to that space. I was upset and frustrated that I had gotten that far. And so, like I say, I didn't even admit to me it had happened. And then a year later, a friend of mine asked me to write an article in her online magazine. And she always had a theme, and I was like, okay, what's the theme this month or for that month? And she said, it's mental awareness or mental health, she called it. And I'm like, okay. So I like writing, but it takes me a long time. And so I went to an author's workshop years ago, and they do a thing where they do a little bit of a lead meditation, which kind of put you in state, right? And then you started to write, which made it way easier because you sort of put yourself in this space, and then away you go. And so I did a little bit of that before I started to write for this article. And that's what came out. That was the story that came out. And I'm like, what the hell? And it scared me so bad I didn't come back to it for a week. I couldn't even look at it. I couldn't read it. When I finally come back to it, I polish it up and play with it a little bit and make sure that anyway, and then I take it to my wife because I figure she should know what happened before I put it online for the world to see. And then I took it to the publisher and said, is this what you wanted? And she's like, through tears, she went, that's perfect. So, but when that pumped out, there was a little bit of healing because I finally admitted it had happened. Not full healing, but some healing. And then people reading that, it caused a bit of a stir because people are like, what the hell? So somebody else asked me to write it in a chapter in an anthology. And so I did that. I wrote it for the second time. And then that caused a stir. And then a friend of mine who read that in the book said, hey, he owned the franchise for Mo Mondays in Guelph. And he said, can you share that story on stage? And I'm like, okay. It took me a little bit to get there, but I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And I'm the type of person, and this will come as a shock to you, that typically you tell me what the topic is and how long you want me to talk, and I just go. That's never been an issue to do that. But when I
And
was,
not today either.
but
But
I
I'm
know
enjoying
it. Absolutely, me too. But at Mondays you have 10 minutes, and so I wanted to make sure if I was going to honor the story and do it justice in terms of making it impactful for people, there were a couple things I wanted to make sure that I touched on. So I was doing some preparation, and I don't know why that hadn't occurred to me. I'd written it in 2 places already, but with that in my mind, that preparation of that in my mind, I walked into our bedroom, and at the time, our bedroom had this long hallway, and the going into the main big room, our bathroom was on the right side. And on the left side, across from that, as you go into the room, there's a his and his closet. And I say that because I have too many clothes and my wife doesn't have any clothes. So it's all full of my stuff. It was then. But I'm looking at the closets, and I'm looking where I would have been on the floor, and I'm looking at the closets. Those closets are about this far apart.
So about 3 inches or so.
About 3 inches.
Yeah.
There's no room on that wall for a picture. That's what I did. He was showing me in the moment what I needed to see to elicit the response that he wanted to have happen.
And that's God.
Yeah, it's Papa. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And to take that a step further, just last year, I think it's interesting that he'll only allow us to remember stuff that, especially with traumatic situations, if there's a benefit to remember. So, I remember, it happens all the time. There was an OHL hockey player in Kitchener, Ben Finelli, he was in his 6th game as a rookie, and this overage kid lined him up and hit him, and it lifted him, checked him, and it lifted him off the ice and slammed him into the concrete abutment. And anyway, he was unconscious before he hit the ice, and he died on the ice. They had to do a trach on him to get him to be able to, like, it was a major thing. And they thought he would never walk again, or probably be brain damaged. And a year and a bit later, he came back to the team, played hockey again, and became our captain. But he'll tell you in the moment, he doesn't remember that hit, because there's no benefit to remembering the pain of that. There's no benefit to him remembering the anguish or the angst or whatever. There's no benefit to that. But Papa knew there would be benefit to me remembering some stuff about that day. And so last year I was on a virtual coffee with somebody, and they put something in my head and challenged me with some stuff. And so working through that, I had a remembering of something Papa said to me on the day that I hadn't remembered. And he said to me, Gord, I have a mission for you to do, and I could get someone else to do it, but I want you to do this. So please don't do what you're doing. And in that moment, there were 2 awarenesses that came from that remembering. One is I have zero ambiguity in terms of what my mission is. I know exactly why I'm here, what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's wonderful. But the other awareness that came was, for me, was even deeper. And sometimes when I share it's impactful, because I believe he created everything. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and he was in my bathroom when I needed him to be there. If that doesn't tell me what my worth and my value is, nothing ever will. And that has spurred. So when I talk to people about, mental awareness, it's all about mindset. I'm a champion mindset mentor. Why is mindset the most important thing? It is that everything comes from what we think. Our brain dictates everything. Nothing happens without our brain, even things we're not thinking about, right? Our blood is pumping, our lungs are breathing. We're not thinking inhale, exhale, but something in our brain is dictating that.
Yeah, thoughts
right?
and things too, right?
Absolutely right. So, but there's something underneath that mindset. And it's what we believe our worth is. Because if I don't believe I'm enough, or if I don't think I'm worthy, then the mindset that gets created out of that is skewed. And now I'm trying to overcome some other stuff. And so understanding a big part of what I teach and what I go, well, do you know what your worth and value is? Because if we can understand, we have infinite worth and value. Papa says it doesn't matter what we've done or what we think or how much our bank account or what we drive or who we know, what our title, none of it matters. None of that. We have infinite value for no other reason than we are. And if we can hold on to that, really believe it and hold on to that, the mindset that gets created out of that is one of abundance and positivity as opposed to lack and negative. And so, I struggle and battle to make sure people understand what their true worth and value is, because at the end of the day, I told my wife on the way home from that funeral a few months ago, I'm like, you know what? I want on my tombstone to say, I always knew he loved me. And I wanted to say that because I believe Papa's always loved me. So from that side, right, from Papa's side, but I want interactions with people. I want them to be able to walk away, and they won't remember what I say to them lots of times. They won't remember the details of the conversation, but what they will always remember is how I made them feel. And so, we talk about legacy, that it's an end of life thing, and it's not. Legacy is what we've poured into people. And we do that every day without realizing we're pouring our legacy into people, positive and negative. And so if I can keep that in the forefront of my brain and understand what my worth and my value is, then when I interact with people, I want them to leave an interaction going, Gord gives a shit about me as a human being. He loves me. And it's not I want you. It's not sexual. It's basic agape human love. It's you're human, I'm human. That I don't need anything but that. And if Papa can love us all unconditionally, then who the hell am I to have, oh, my standards are higher than his. I can't like you or love you because of this and this. And like, get over yourself. The creator loves that person just as much as he loves you and me. The people that we don't like, he loves them just as much as he loves you and me. Who the hell am I to stand? And so, I'm at a point now where the presentation doesn't matter. I don't care how they present. The gender doesn't matter. The nationality doesn't matter. None of it matters. What they do, is it important in the sense that, moral, not moral, right and wrong? Yes, of course it does. But it's not a judgment thing. Do you know what I mean? It's not a, hey, I can't love you because you've done this.
Or you think that, or you believe in that,
Right, exactly right. You voted for who? Oh my God, I can't possibly, right? That all that goes away. There's no, if I can lead with love instead of judgment, I'm creating a space for people that reach out, and they do reach out and know, hey, Gord's not going to judge me. He loves me, and I'm safe in that space. I can share anything I want with him, and it'll stay right there, and it'll be okay. And he won't tell me I'm less than in any way because I feel that way, or because, right? And so creating that kind of a legacy in people, you never hear at a funeral, he had a beautiful house and a huge bank account and a bitchin' car and a really hot wife. You don't hear that at a funeral. At least I've not been to one that you did.
No.
We all talk about what that person poured into them. They pushed me on a swing. They taught me how to read, whatever it was. The point is they're leaving that legacy. We're leaving that on a day to day basis. And it doesn't have to be something monumental. It can be something small. It can be that doesn't take time, money, energy, something as simple as a smile. I can tell you a story about a young man. A smile saved his life. A smile from a stranger saved his life. And I'm like, people go, oh man, we got to spend time and money and have a relation. No. People that we see in the grocery store, people in the bank, people that cut us off in traffic, we're leaving our legacy in those people.
Yes. And we're all going through this collective angst and mental health crisis, I feel, especially in the past 3 years. And a lot of it is what I alluded to in 26 Minutes with, to me, there's no vision with leaders in our country. That's this one fighting against that one, and it's that one, saying this one's bad. And it's like, let's stop the crap already, and let's get together and make this place rock and rebuild it.
Absolutely. Agree to disagree. right?
Yeah.
We used to call it adulting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Just it doesn't change who they are,
No.
right? And if everybody thought exactly the same, what a freaking boring life and world that would be.
Yeah, we'd have nothing to say or to argue about.
Exactly.
We alluded to in the 26 minutes with that men are more likely to take their own lives. And the Mental Health Commission of Canada agrees. They say that of the estimated 4,000 suicide deaths in Canada each year, close to 75% are men.
Yep.
So what is it about life's pressures that is causing these kinds of numbers, Gordon? And what can we do then as friends, family, as a community? They say it takes a community to raise a kid. I think it takes a community to raise each other. How do we come together to lessen these pressures and expectations? All these outdated patterns and models of how we're all supposed to be. Well, a guy goes to work and makes money and hunts for food and comes back, and the woman's at the stove. Well, that's gone by the wayside.
It has.
So
For sure it has. It's an interesting thing, and that's why I say women try more often than men, but men succeed more often than women at 5-1, right?
Yeah.
It's ridiculously high. But in terms of how do we change it, we have to give guys the tools they need to figure stuff out. We have to build a culture around allowing them to be themselves, allowing them without judgment to ask for help. Because as long as we keep holding the judgment, as long as there's shame and embarrassment around and people judge people for asking for help, people will continue to choose suicide over asking for help because they don't want to have that. So, expectations is something that I removed from my life as much as I can. And I heard somebody just literally in the last week that talked about that. And I was like, oh my God, that's beautiful because I wrote a relationship book with some friends, and one of the things we talk about in there is removing expectation. I've been married more than 31 years, and you can count on one hand the number of fights we've had, and still have fingers left. And people go, well, is that because somebody's a doormat? Is somebody just giving in over and over and over? And I asked my wife, is that right? And she goes, no, neither one of us are doormats. That's not the deal. And so trying to look at that, this person said, expectations is not good because if I have expectations for David, that's about me. It has nothing to do with you. There's no buy-in whatsoever from you because they're not your expectation. They're my expectation. So for you trying to live up to what I think you should be, it doesn't matter what I think you should be, right? So they talked about having an agreement instead of expectations. So to sit down and my wife and I realized that's what we had done. We've gone, hey, when this type of thing happens, this is what we're going to do. Are you good with that? Yep, great. I'm good with that too. And so there's an agreement. Well, as soon as there's an agreement, then what I think and what you think are now together, right? Because that's a negotiated agreement, right? And now people don't like to not live up to their word. So you're going to, because it was part of, you were involved with setting that agreement. So now you're going to try as hard as you can to make sure you uphold the agreement where you wouldn't have tried to uphold the expectation. And
right.
Right. And so, we need to have an agreement with men that goes, you know what? You reach out, we'll help you. You reach out, there won't be judgment. You reach out, it's a safe zone. You reach out, we're not going to look down on you. We're not going to treat you differently. You reach out. And having that agreement with them that allows and builds a culture around it's okay. Why do women fail? Because more often than not, they don't want to do that. Well, they try more often. Usually that's an emotional reaction, not a response, right, to a situation. But they don't succeed mostly because they didn't want to do it in the first place. Guys go, you know what? I'm not gonna fail at this because that just makes it even worse for me. I can't even, I'm so lame. I can't even do this correctly.
Right.
Right. And then there's more shame and more embarrassment and more whatever.
Yeah. And then they got to, look at the emotions behind that.
And look at other people and look at their friends and family and their work colleagues and whatever and go, oh, crap, because they're going to find out this is what happened. This is what got tried. And so, building an agreement with guys in general that says, look, I'll create the space. We'll create a society that creates the space where it's safe. We'll create the space that's okay to open up and share and ask for. And as long as we could do that, if we could do that, that number will drop like a rock on both sides, men and women. If we can create a society where people all agree, there's not going to be judgment. There's no shame or embarrassment. We don't do it with anything else. If you break your leg, everybody doesn't look, hey, sucks to be you. Like that there's empathy. Hey, I can understand that. But because it's in our head and nobody can see that, it scares us. And so we want to put it in a box because that way I can understand it and not be afraid of it. The challenge with that is we have to be able as a society to create an agreement with each other that we're not going to do that to each other. We do it with physical health. We don't do it with mental health.
Right.
Right.
We're all going to go through our challenges and
we all do.
So talking about, you said in a box, to wrap up today, you have a new program that's geared towards men. It's called your Boxed Out program. Are you gonna what are you offering men to come and be a part of that Boxed Out program?
So it's boxed inside out, and it's not outside the box thinking. It's eradicate the box, burn the box. There's no box. It's just find ways, and we'll teach tools and strategies to be able to deal with the emotion we all feel every day, but don't know what to do with. And so I had put it out. That program, I used to do it all the time, and on digital it's a little harder, but trying to get guys to connect to that has been really hard. So and just in the last, it's interesting that since the last time you and I talked, even I've been trying to put 12 guys into that class, because I only take 12 people into the group.
Yeah.
And it's a 4-month program, 90 minutes twice a month for 4 months as level 1 of Box Inside Out. And I was getting frustrated with it because 4 billion men on the planet, I can't find a dozen guys to go, hey,
it's challenging right now.
But we created.
I sent it out personal emails to about.
You did. I know. I appreciate that very, very much. And so basically what I've done is say, you know what? It was odd and interesting that the number you had used, that the statistics say 85% are men succeeding, right? Probably 80 to 85% of the responses I got to any of those ads that I put out, that you put out, that anybody else that endorsed it put out, more than 80%, probably close to 85%, the response was from women.
Wow.
Not from men. Wow. And so I was a little bit frustrated at the end of last week, and I'm like, you know what, your guys, we as guys, we have our head in our ass, and we don't know how to plug in, or we're afraid to plug in, or our ego won't let us, or whatever, our pride or whatever it is. And I said, you know what, screw that. And so I reached out, I put an ad out, just a couple lines, and then I sent that same ad to about 35 women, 40 women that said, hey, I'm curious. I've got a little bit of free time next week. If I did a Box Inside Out for women, would you be interested? And I got 98% response within 2 hours from all of the women that I pumped out to. That there only 3 said no. The rest of them all said, hey, can you give me some more details? How much time is involved, or how much does the money? Like, I'm like, oh my God, like they instantly connected to that. And I was like, you know what? Does that change my avatar? No, my heart is still for entrepreneurial men and pro athletes. That's where my heart is. But I was like, you know what? Maybe I do it for women. I do one for women, and then use that as the testimonials, and they will be able to slap their guys and go, hey, you need to do that. We just went through that. You need to do this. And so, am I abandoning my men? No, not at all, because that's where my heart is. That's what the women are connected to this already. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're connecting to something. They already have a higher version of it than men do. So they already have more tools than we do. So, and even they're looking at it going, you know what? We need more tools. We need to add more tools. And so I want to do it. I will do it for men. The next one probably will be for women. But I mean, if guys want to reach out, I am all over that. And if I get a response from men that's overwhelming and go, hey, you know what? There's 10, 12 guys that want to do that, I'm all over that. I'll absolutely do it. At the same time as I do the women's, not in the same class, but I'll do them simultaneously if I can find them to do that.
Right.
Because,
Well,
you
what's
know,
that? What's that men's program? And it's for women too. They have a special one for men, and he's based in California. He's older now. Starts with an S. Um,
men and women.
Sterling Men's
Okay.
weekend. And you go down to California, you take his weekend.
Yeah.
But and it's helping men, you know, really kind of doing what you're doing, but in
Yeah.
his way, and to really level up and be better partners at home,
Yep.
and on he has one for women too.
Yep. Well, you know what? I'm starting to do a thing, and that this is coming out of a conversation I had today. But I think I'm going to rebrand a little bit in terms of men and go, hey, feel like a boss at work, but feel like shit at home.
Yeah.
Are you tired of that? Let's talk.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's what's happening. We spend all of our time at work because we get validated at work.
Right.
We get accolade at work, but we go home and our wife says, hey, you never listen to me anymore and you don't show up. And whatever, the kids go, hey, I hate you. You're not the boss of me. And I'm like, you know what the hell am I doing here? I'm going to go back to work where they tell me I'm a Titan and I'm a, you know, I'm have value and worth in that space. I'm going to spend more time there. And that just makes the problem worse.
Yes.
Right.
I drove I had to take Lyft the other day. Like it's an alternative to Uber.
Yeah.
I had an eye doctor appointment, and they put drops in your eyes so that when it was sunny on Monday, so that when you drive home, you could barely see. So I went, screw it, I'm taking a Lyft. And I got in on the way home, and the guy was saying, "Are you single? Are you married?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm single. You know, whatever." Oh, yeah, that must be so nice. You have peace. And he was going on about his marriage, and you know, they're at the point where he's gonna leave the marriage.
Yeah.
You know, because they're just like they're totally out of alignment. The woman more so than him. He's working now, you know, 18 hours a day to avoid all this, and then she's and you know, whatever. It's all patterns and
it is
behaviors that are sort of, you know, it's like bricks. They've kind of gone boop, 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 and now it's closed, right?
Very true. The other thing that's coming, the other thing that's coming quickly, then I will share with you and your audience. I haven't shared it anywhere else yet. There is a men's program, a membership program coming. That's kind of like Business Leaders Network and Connected Leaders Academy and some of the things where you and I meet. It'll be a men's group, specifically men, and it's an invite only.
Well, if I can help in any way, let me know.
Membership, I will absolutely. So that'll launch probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But
okay, keep me posted.
I
so,
will.
Gordon, kind of final thoughts here. This has been great, well worth the time. It's 3 years from now, and there's a magazine. I don't know if you know it. It's called Mindfulness Magazine, and they feature you on the cover.
Wow.
What does the article say about you and the work you're doing?
Wow. I would be honored and humbled to be on the cover of a magazine.
Oh, why not?
Yeah, that would be what it would be about. It would be that that we've broken through, and as a society where we have agreement, we have a safe space for guys to be able to talk and to be able to, and you know what, there are places around like that. I know I'm not the only one. But to be able to spearhead a movement that pulls a lot of that together and goes, you know what, there's a place for all of those groups. There's a place for all of those programs. There's 4 billion men on the planet. There's room for everybody to do their thing, but to have an overwhelming impact, because my personal goal, and I share that sometimes, but my personal goal is to change the lives of every man by raising their EQ. But that's my own, right? That's my mission. But that's not where everybody is. And so, when people tell me, Gord, 10 million, that's a lot of guys. And I'm like, yep. But I hear Papa in the back of my head telling me, yep, that is a lot of guys, but there's 4 billion people on the planet, 4 billion men on the planet, more than 8 billion people, more than 4 billion men. 10 million is not.
And not one will stop and ask for directions.
Yeah, absolutely. One will. I do all the time.
Okay, one.
But to be able to say, you know what, 10 million is not the target. 10 million is the jump point. We'll start to count at 10 million. So 3 years from now, maybe that article says, you know what, 20 million men and counting, or 15 million men and counting, that we're impacting in a positive way, that we're allowing and building and creating together that agreement with them that says, hey, you know what, it's okay not to be okay. It really is. It's just not okay to stay there.
Yes.
And to be able to have that moving forward. So.
Yeah, and God doesn't want you there.
True.
Thank you for this today. I really appreciate this. And I wish you much success in your work and your journey towards, 10 million men. Again, where do we connect with you to learn more?
The easiest way is Jewel, so JEWIL.coaching@gmail.com, or the longbeardedguy@gmail.com or find me you have to put the in. Yeah. But the long-bearded guy on any social media platform, you can find me. You can listen, actually, today's Thursday. So tomorrow at noon, if you go to inspiredchoicesnetwork.tv, is our TV station. You can watch my show is live between 12 and 1 o'clock tomorrow, called The Long-Bearded Guy.
Wonderful. Thank you again. And for those that listen to us and follow us, 26 Minutes with and The Deeper Dive is a show that is about inspiration, the show that honors those who are leading, making an impact, and creating positive change on the planet and or locally. I'm your host, David Cohen. Next week, Kathy Nesbitt is our new associate host. She's doing her first ever interview. So she's probably going to be a little bit nervous, and it might not be the smoothest ride, but she's going for it. And God love her, because she's such a wonderful woman. And she's speaking with also a coach and teacher, James McNeil, who you know. Yep. And so Kathy's going to take over the reins next week, so I can have a day off.
They're both great human beings. Kathy's awesome. James is amazing. Unbelievable. So so we're trying to have Kathy on our Mo Monday stage.
So she'll be doing that next week, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks with some really good shows. We've got new energy and new lineups and new ways of doing the show. We're also on Acast, we're on Spotify, by the way, now, and we're on YouTube. So thank you so much for listening, and once again, Gordon, thank you so much for being a guest today.
I appreciate it.
What a joy.